What is going on, everyone? So comics are dead, right? Nobody's buying comics. No one's getting into comics now. It's everything's going to zero, all that kind of stuff that that I feel like we hear a lot right now. But hey, somebody looks like they're getting back into comics. And it's a pretty big name out there. LeBron James today made a post. Best place to order comic books from. Used to collect when I was younger, Batman being my fave. I can order and read from iPad or best to do straight off the comic. So, I mean, this brings up to me, it's like celebrities in comics or people that are going to bring new eyes to comic books. In this post, I mean, you can see here, it's been viewed 5.7 million times. LeBron James has 53 million followers, 3,600 comments, 4,300 shares, almost 80,000 likes. So this is the type of post that, I mean, you could get some new people potentially interested in comic books with a post like this. You got someone like LeBron James, a big name out there, not only in sports, but a celebrity, everything, talking about comic books. Where can he buy comic books? Where can he read comic books? So we'll get into that a little bit, but he's not the only celebrity. I mean, there's some others that are very well known out there that are into comics and are very well known in the comic book world. Obviously, one of them is Nicolas Cage. This video has become pretty popular. This was 8 years ago. You can see here, Nicolas Cage buys amazing books at Amazing Comic Con Las Vegas 2016. And it's him standing around showing people just some incredible books. You've got Amazing Spider-Man 1 in there right off the bat. But just an example of he's someone who would actually go to a con. Like, do you think LeBron James is going to go to a con? I don't know. I feel like maybe he's going to pick him up digitally or even have somebody maybe bid for him and maybe in a big auction house, something like that to get some cool books. But we know Nicolas Cage definitely graces cons on the occasion and is big into these books. I mean, the Nicolas Cage books, they aren't a pedigree, but on the CGC, on CGC graded books, there are some that are marked from the Nicolas Cage collection. I have definitely tried to go after some of those in the past, and they command a huge premium. We've also got Eminem. He is known to potentially own one of the 9.6 Amazing Fantasy 15s, possibly the person that bought the one on Heritage. We don't know for sure. Those are the rumors that are out there. And he's also big just in comics themselves. This was one of the comics that he partnered with Marvel on and was one of the hottest books last year. Still goes for a surprisingly decent amount of money. It is definitely corrected from the comic boom peaks, but still goes for a pretty decent amount of money. Now, if LeBron James wanted to read comics digitally, he has a number of options. Got these up here. Got Comixology available through Amazon. You can read a whole bunch of different, comic publishers there. You've got Marvel Unlimited. It's another option that you've got if you want to, read your Marvel comics on an iPad, on your iPhone, wherever it might be. And then you've got DC Universe, Ultimate Comic Fan Experience, another place where you can read those DC comics. There are other options out there as well. There are free options, not necessarily legal options, but there are free options out there too. But these are the pay subscription type options where you can read a lot of these comics that are out there. And a lot of times you can even go back into some pretty old comics, Golden Age comics, if you want to see those. Because a lot of times people don't necessarily want to open up and handle their really expensive comic books. Now, if you were going to go out and buy some comics, because if it was me, if I'm LeBron James, and he would be one of those people that I've talked about where effectively has unlimited money. This is someone that could buy any comic book that they wanted, could handle and read any comic book they wanted, and it could get damaged. From the perspective of his net worth, of the value that he has, it wouldn't impact him at all. Or someone like me, if I'm handling a $5,000 or a $10,000 book, like a raw book, I am nervous. I am nervous when I'm doing that. I don't want to drop it. I don't want to damage it. I don't want to hurt the value on it. But if I had that level of money, if I wanted to read Batman comics, he said he's a fan of Batman, I'd be buying raw books. I'd be buying Batman 1, Detective Comics 27, all those early books. I'd be reading them with my hands. I'd probably put gloves on, so you don't want to damage them, but I'd be reading them, with my bare hands, with the paper. I mean, I know, like, I've read comics online on the screen, but it is just not the same. Like, to me, it is just not the same as reading the comics on the paper, smelling that paper, especially with older books. There is something about opening, reading, flipping through older books that just, I don't know. Anybody that reads those books, that buys, collects those books, they know that smell, they know that feel. And for me, that's just what I would personally go for. And there are a number of options out there that you have to buy comics. I've done buying and selling type videos before, but I did see some posts recently it was either one of the Facebook or Reddit posts where somebody had made some, we'll call them maybe bidding mistakes with some of the buyer's premiums that are out there on these different sites. So I just figured I would talk about that for a moment. So first, we've got eBay. eBay is one of the easiest places that you can go to, simplest place. You can see here just under collectibles with comics, over 10 million results. If you want to buy on eBay, there are always comics out there on eBay. It has to be, I think, the biggest comic buying and selling platform that's out there. They're not necessarily going to always have the biggest books. Those really big books are generally going to be on the big auction houses, but there are still some pretty high-end books that sell on eBay. And, just search for whatever you want and you can make bids. There's going to be auctions, all kinds of stuff. I think everybody's pretty familiar with eBay. You're going to have your sales tax and your shipping and everything that's going to be added on top of the price that you pay. So just make sure that you're aware of that when you are bidding and when you are purchasing a book. Now, next we're going to move on to Heritage. And so we've got Heritage here because Heritage often, you get a lot of reactions from people on Heritage because of the buyer's premium. And me personally, I don't think anything about it. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to take a look at this Action Comics #1 that is coming up for sale in this Heritage auction in about a day. And it's sitting at a bid of $145,000 right now, but you can see here it says with buyer's premium $174,000. I personally, when I am bidding on books on Heritage, I don't even think about this first number. You are going to be paying that final number. You're paying $174,000. The way to look at this is always that final number. I know some people get really hung up on, and I don't really get it. It's like they have a problem with Heritage making money on the sale. Like, this is how they make money. Like that's how they have a business. That's how they make money. They are, they're bringing in the clientele that's going to be interested in books of this caliber. And that is what you are paying them for. That's the service fee. And that's that 20% there. There can also be a seller's fee on top of that, but usually people do work out some type of deal. It depends on how many books you're selling, the caliber of books that you're selling, but it isn't always that someone is paying that full price. But always look at the final number when you're on Heritage, and they make it very clear. That's the other thing. If you were going to, and I don't want to put in a bid here, but if you were going to put in a bid here, they make it very clear that you are bidding that number plus 20%. They tell you what that number is going to be. When you're in the live bids, they put it right on the screen in front of you. You know exactly what you're bidding. There's no confusion. So just know that when you're going in. Now, the other thing with Heritage is that when you're bidding, if it's within the last 5 seconds, it adds on more time. So it's about 10 seconds. So you bid and then it gives people time to bid back. So just something to consider there. It is not a sniping situation. There's no sniping on Heritage. You are going to have an opportunity to bid back if somebody outbids you in one of those auctions, as long as you're paying attention to the live. Now we're going to jump over to Comic Link. So Comic Link has two types of sales that you can participate in. They've got what they call their exchanges, which is just like a fixed price listing on eBay. They also have auctions. That's the more common situation on Comic Link. And their auctions are, you can see here, this one ends in 2 hours and 34 minutes. And the way these auctions work is it will count down, and it is a sniping situation. You're going to have people that are going to watch right until the last couple seconds. They're going to bid at the last second, and whoever has that highest bid is going to win. And that's typically how this works. You'll see some pretty decent jumps near the end with these books, just like you'll see on eBay. So no added time on Comic Link. It's just a countdown, and it ends and it's done. And then they move on to the next book. Now, the one thing with Heritage is they don't move on to the next book until that prior book is completed. So it does add time, but they keep on that single book until you move on to the next one. The reason I point that out is because Comic Connect is different. So the last one here we've got is Comic Connect. They also have a consignment type situation where you can fix price books and people can come out and buy them, but they then have auctions too. Again, auctions are generally the more common method of sales here. Now, their auctions are countdowns, but I'll say Comic Connect for me is the most frustrating bidding, because the way Comic Connect works is that if you bid within the last 3 minutes, it jumps all the way back up to 3 minutes. And so if there's 2 seconds left and somebody bids against you, it jumps up to 3 minutes and you got to wait for that countdown again. And it's definitely, there's some mind games people play, whether you want to bid back right away or if you want to wait until the last few seconds to mess with someone. But the tricky thing with Comic Connect is that they just keep moving on to the next book. So you can have multiple books that are ending at the exact same time when you start adding on this little bit of time each bid. And so Comic Connect auctions can get tricky if you're trying to follow multiple books at once. So just something to be aware of. When you've got Heritage, it's always one book at a time. They never move on to the next book until the prior book is complete. Comic Link is the same. It's one book at a time, and they end right at that moment in time. Like you can see here, this one, 232, 233, 233, 233. These will probably have about 20 or 30 seconds between each of them, 234, 234. And so you can see these ones are just going to end one after another after another. Comic Connect will just keep going. If you've watched some of the live streams that I've done before with Mickey and Drew, Swaggle House Comics and Como Comics, there have been times where a book is at the end and there's just a lot of interest in it, or two people bidding back and forth, and it takes 30 minutes or more for that book to finish after it would have originally ended if it just ended at its normal time. So you can add a lot of time on with this bidding. And so it can be tricky, like I said, to follow multiple books on Comic Connect, because you've got times that are going to be jumping all over the place. But I just thought I would cover this. I thought this was pretty cool. This is an interesting post to see LeBron James posting about, basically looking like he's getting back into comics. And if I was him, I'd probably be buying raw books. I'd probably be going to something like Heritage or Comic Link or Comic Connect. You crack them out of there, because the big books like that, they're going to be graded, but you crack them out of there and you read them, and but he doesn't have to really worry about the values nearly as much. Someone like me, I'm not doing that. I'll definitely, I'd be reading those online, or just never getting a chance to really read them. I'm not cracking open a Batman 1 or a Detective Comics 27 and reading it with my bare hands. But let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Has anybody else seen this post out there? Do you think that celebrities, sports stars, things like this can have an impact on the comic buying and selling community? I don't know. All I can say is it can't really hurt. See you on the next one.